Anybody who's being unloving to you is unable to teach you anything. This is a major point that each of you need to understand. If somebody's being unloving to you, they are not able to teach you anything. Right? It's also loving for you to say, you're trying to overcome my free will, which is, I didn't ask for your advice. Right? It's also loving for you to say, that is an unloving thing. Like, don't talk to me unless I've asked for your advice. Right? So you notice with Mary and I, because you come to our sessions, we're presuming you are asking for our advice. Right? But if we were at your home, we would say a lot less unless you asked. And sometimes I have been with people and I can feel they don't want to ask anything, and so I hardly speak at all. Many people think I speak all the time, and that's not true. It's very, very frequent that I'm quiet an entire day because nobody has asked anything. Or I don't feel engaged with the conversation that I'm having with other people. I don't feel that it's important or necessary. And so I say nothing. Right? When you, and bear in mind that this is very much, most of you are, when you know your free will is trying to be overcome by somebody else, many of you try to be polite. But it's not polite from God's perspective. It's not polite. To be truly polite would be to say exactly what you're feeling. I didn't ask for your advice. I don't want to listen to what you're saying. That would be the most polite thing to say, because it would be the most in agreement with the truth of how you feel. So it's the most polite thing to say. Anything else is a facade, a falsity, a presentation of error, your error, and why do you need to do that? So every time you sit there in a conversation, not wanting to be a part of that conversation, not wanting to listen to the conversation, you are actually being impolite from God's perspective, not polite. And you're also not being honest, which is the more important thing. Truth sets you free. That also means when you speak a truth, you will be free. So if you think about a thing where somebody's come up to you and they're talking to you about something that you don't really want to talk about, and by saying, I don't want to talk about that, you become free of the conversation that you don't want to have.
And also, you give the person, if you think about these three statements, John, if Anna had said to you the first thing, I didn't ask for your advice, John, that's the first opportunity you had to go, oh, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Why am I trying to force my advice on somebody? You know?
Well, if you didn't stop at that point, then she could say, you're being very unloving, John.
Now,
that gives you another
opportunity. Right?
And then if you ignore all those, then you just have to say to the person, go away. Or I'm going away.
And you would think, oh, she's not a very nice woman, but she's actually being the most loving she can be in the circumstance if she did those three things.
She's not attacking you, she's not trying to pull you down, she's not trying to be polite, she's not putting up until you finish. So she's actually being very honest with you and giving you every opportunity to make different choices.
And you couldn't sense in the moment that actually Anna wasn't listening to you anyway, so what's the point of you speaking? She wasn't listening anyway. She was already going, I just want to get away from him. I just want to get away from him, is what she was feeling. And that's why we smiled at you when we went past, because we could just see that dynamic going on. But it raises an issue for many of you with regard to what you believe is your understanding of divine truth. You see, when you do things like that, you demonstrate you don't understand God's truth at all. Because the very first critical part of understanding God's truth is honouring a person's free will. And as soon as you're trying to overcome another person's free will, you are actually dishonouring divine truth, God's truth, in the moment, by the attempt to overcome free will. God never does that with you, right? If God chose to, he'd be in your ear, because remember, he created your ear, He knows how to manipulate it if he wanted to manipulate it. It could be in your ear every day moment of your life if he decided he was going to try to overcome your free will, couldn't he? And many spirits, and some of you experience this, do that to you, where they're in your ear and you just sort of, or they're in your thoughts, trying to influence your thoughts, which, by the way, is also an unloving thing to do. And because it's a manipulation of your free will. You haven't asked them to do such things. So even that is obviously an unloving thing for somebody to do. So for me to be in Mary's face and in her ears, talking to her about things that she doesn't want to hear about at all, is an unloving act on my part. And the average person would go, oh, she's so resistive. And I go, no wonder, because you're trying to overcome her will. And anytime somebody attempts to overcome the will of another, you are actually now, from God's perspective, being very unloving and even abusive to the person.
And actually, when somebody's trying to overcome my will, the appropriate response is to resist.
Yeah.
That is loving.
The appropriate response is to not listen when somebody does that. That's the loving response, is to not listen. Make sense? Check.